because I'm getting sick to death of hearing Keir Starmer and his ridiculous way of speaking. Let's have a look quickly. Isabel, very good morning to you. His latest advert this weekend.
The budget will light the way, and we will use the power of government, stability, investment and reform, partnership across the whole of society, galvanised by clear objectives to deliver on the priorities of the British people. Foundations fixed, public services renewed, a country rebuilt by investment, released from decline, returned once more to the service of working people.
The service of working people. He's obviously not spending enough time at home, Isabel, because I don't recognise any of that he just described. He's spending too much time on a plane, I think.
What is he talking about? I mean, that video is just so much guff, isn't it? Nothing means anything. I'm so sick of hearing politicians in leadership positions talking about delivering.
Yes.
They're not pizza drivers, are they? They're not Deliveroo people delivering takeaways. Nobody knows what any of this stuff means. And I've seen him at it again today when he's talking about why he feels the need to go all the way over to Brazil for the G20, having just come back from God knows where else, Azerbaijan and all the other globe-trotting he's doing. And he always starts his sentence with, let's be clear.
Yes.
Whenever any politician says, let's be clear, that just means they're playing for time and trying to make themselves sound more important than they actually are and trying to make what they're about to say sound more significant. All he ever does is speak in platitudes.
Yeah.
What people want to see is actual change, not politicians talking about how they've got a plan and they're going to change things and they're going to return Britain to, whatever. What did he say? Something about the service of public service?
Yeah, the service of the people of Britain, doing what the people want and all this. He's just making it up as he goes along. Nobody wants what he's doing.
Look at the state of the country. Does anyone honestly think that Labour is delivering whatever it is he says they're delivering? They're just delivering more woe, more problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at what he's going to miss because he's in Brazil, cozying up to President Xi. He's going to miss the farmers' protest, which is possibly going to be the single biggest issue, which might be a problem for this government and might even bring them down. Jeremy Clarkson apparently is going to be out front leading it. I've been already told by people that I know inside of the police who are suggesting that they might try and stop them from getting down to Westminster because they're frightened, they're terrified that some farmers is going to unleash a load of slurry on one of the buildings, and so they might try and stop them like they did with the, if you remember, the fuel protest, and they keep them all sort of sitting somewhere in Park Lane.
Yeah, I mean, sort of kettle them, you mean?
Yes.
I mean, it would be him trying to kettle tractors. I think this is a very significant moment, isn't it? And knowing farmers, this is just the first of a whole series that they'll do, because it's hardly as if they're going to get a quick result on this. You know, one thing to learn from this government is they're incredibly stubborn. Even when it's patently obvious that they're completely wrong about things, what they tend to do is double down. I mean, we've seen Keir Starmer and his administration doing this in the last week alone, where instead of actually backing off from something, I'm thinking of the free speech thing, they actually double down and make things worse. So I suspect that this is going to be the first of many. It will bring chaos. I've been sort of slightly wrestling with my attitude on this because I am much more sympathetic to these farmers blockading whatever it is they need to blockade in order to protest at this measure, which is absolutely existential for some family farms. And yet I am aware that, of course, you and I and many others that talk are very critical when Just Stop Oil stop the traffic. I think the difference here is that what Just Stop Oil is asking for is unachievable by Britain alone. It's not even achievable generally. Right. Whereas farmers are actually protesting about is a specific policy measure which is totally achievable to reverse. So there is some point in doing it.
I think so. Also, when the farmers do this tomorrow, Tuesday, I mean, you say it might not be the end of it, but it won't be something that they do on a regular basis. Like whenever the school holidays are on, it seems as though most of the Just Stop Oil protesters, many of whom are teachers, I think, they're doing, you know, when they're doing something every single day, that's when it starts to, for me, to be a problem. I don't mind people demonstrating, but you know...
As a one-off.
Yeah, exactly. exactly, or something that even moves. You know, the tractor demonstration, I'm sure, will be a moving demonstration. That's you know, born out of history in this country, and of course people should be allowed to do it. But I think we reserve a special place for the sort of Just the Boil lot just because they're so idiotic about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so,
Yeah,
meanwhile, let's talk about the other thing that's happening, which is that Starmer's gone off to this G20 meeting. I don't know what else is on the agenda, but he's making it very clear that he wants to cozy up to China. And I'm not sure whether that's the right thing to do at this particular time when America, for example, is talking about putting tariffs on Chinese goods in order to stop them from flooding the market in America.
Well, it's the very opposite of what we should be doing. We should be building up our own ability to make some of the things that we import from China. And we should be bearing in mind that China is not our friend, quite the reverse. I would regard China as a hostile state. And, you know, for Keir Starmer to stand there and say that he wants a serious, pragmatic relationship with China and try to pretend, you know, that the Chinese leadership is going to deal with this country as in a relationship of equals. That is beyond naive, and it's generous, I think, to describe it as just naivety. It's really stupid to cozy up to China. They are every hour of every day plotting basically a world domination in which Britain, the only part that the UK will play is to be useful idiots.
Right.
And Sir Keir Starmer's pretty good at that, isn't he? So no doubt it's very much in the Chinese interest to get whatever it is they want from Keir Starmer, you know, less vigilance, you know, a little bit more kowtowing from the UK. But we're not going to get anything out of this.
No, of course not. I mean, you can't imagine President Xi thinking of Keir Starmer as anything other than a rather pathetic sort of dweeb hanging about, you know, trying to get something from him, and he'll just completely play him because that's what he does. I mean, you know, he runs a massive country, one of the superpowers. Why on earth would he have any interest in listening to Keir Starmer other than to kind of, you know, humiliate him at some point down the road and sort of humour him for a bit? And Starmer, of course, preening himself, thinking, that, well, look at me, I'm wandering the world stage like some kind of colossus. Well, he's not really.
No, he's not. He's more of a political pygmy, and that's probably, again, being a little bit generous to him. Look, well, Britain is just a tiny, almost a kind of little minor little hurdle in the way of China's massive ambitions. You know, this is a country that is busy carving up Africa in a form of modern colonialism that surely, if he had any consistency about him whatsoever, Keir Starmer and Foreign Secretary David Lammy as well, they would utterly deplore. You know, not so long ago, David Lammy was making noises about China having to be held to account for the genocide of the Uyghurs. Gone awful quiet about that, haven't they? Because it doesn't fit with their agenda now. China has huge ambitions, and they're very, very strategic about it. They think in an entirely different way to our lot, who, you know, basically are all only ever thinking about how to get through today, tomorrow, and perhaps the rest of the week. The Chinese are busy thinking in decades, in 50 years, in 100 years' time. And, you know, the scale of what they're doing, including across our, you know, Commonwealth nations, where the Chinese are very readily providing practical support. You know, they pay for new airports to be built, new infrastructure, and they then take a huge amount of ownership of that. And it's basically a modern form of empire.
Well, it is. And somebody pointed out to me at the weekend, rather interestingly, that David Lammy spends a lot of time these days saying, you know, the thing is, the past doesn't matter. When I spoke about Donald Trump, that was a long time ago. You know, that's not how I feel now. Similarly with China. And yet he's still chasing down the reparations, even though they happened a long time ago.
I mean, this guy's a muppet. I don't expect him to be in the job much longer. He's completely... so many of the positions that he held in the past are a real problem for him now. I'm certain that the new incoming president, Donald Trump, will take no time whatsoever for David Lammy. I mean, he will utterly deride David Lammy, likewise Keir Starmer. So, you know, the best that we can hope is that we can forge a close relationship with the US, despite the people that we have in charge of our country this point.
Yeah, have a look at this ad, because this, I think, will really set the stall out for what America is likely to be in the next 4 years, which will be a kind of proper colossus of the world. This is Donald Trump's new ad.
We can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States. He will be going back to the White House.
I will fight for you, for your family, and your future with every breath in my body.
We're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children. We're going to lead the greatest comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
God spared my life for a reason, to restore America to greatness. Together we can truly make America great again.
Wow. And I mean, clearly old Starmer thought that he was going to lose. And that's why he didn't. That's why he appointed David Lamb. He didn't think that would be a problem. That's why he sent 100 people over to help Kamala Harris's campaign. And that's why now, looking at that, can you imagine Starmer doing a version of that? We're going to make England great. Sorry, Britain great again. We're going to release the sausages. He couldn't get the boats right last week, could he? I mean, we were making fun of him because he couldn't say snaggling gongs gangs. He said.
Oh dear! I mean, you don't see Trump standing there going, "Oh, delivery change," you know. "Oh, I'm going to do make you know, let's be clear."
Yeah.
You know, we all have shared global goals and twaddling on about.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of inspirational, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that video just makes you feel a bit, you know, kind of stirred, right? I mean,
Yeah, you want to go there and join in. You want to go, right, you know what, I'm going to move back to America.
I really think people in Britain yearn for something like this. They yearn to be able. I'm so sorry. This is me trying to make sure that I don't forget to come on your show, Mike, and talk about these important issues. My alarm's just gone off. Apologies for that.
That's all right.
So I think that voters just yearn for that kind of, all that symbolism, you know, that energy, that enthusiasm, a real feeling of something glorious ahead.
Yes.
And instead, Keir Starmer, it's just so sort of dismally managerial, and it's badly managed. That's the worst thing about it.
Well, let's finish with that, because, you know, I want to know about the Sue Gray. You know, we were told the grown-ups are going to be back in charge, and you know, we all know how dreadful it was. And Tim Shipman's coming up next, so he'll tell us, you know, the last days of the sort of Tory rule were riven with all sorts of idiotic, you know, infighting and all sorts of bad mistakes being made. But, you know, we were told that Sue Gray was this fantastic woman of integrity, filled with the absolute, you know, burning steel and ambition for running the country the right way. It turns out that she didn't end up doing her ridiculous new job as envoy for nations and regions, because she wanted even more money. They were already giving her 170,000 quid, a little bit more than the Prime Minister, so they couldn't come to an agreement. And then now we've got Rachel Reeves changing her CV, because it turns out she wasn't an economist at the Bank of England or at HBOS. She was actually just working in a retail bank on the high street.
Yeah, I mean, the Sue Gray thing is strange, isn't it? I never understand why people who get high positions, or they're offered very high positions in Downing Street, worry too much about the money.
Yeah.
You know, assuming that they're able to be just about okay, because you don't do a job like that for the money. You do a job like that because it's an incredible honour, and you hope that you can actually make things better for your country. And trust me, you can sure as hell cash in afterwards. You know, just be patient here, because once you're out of Downing Street, you've got that on your CV, well, happy days. You know, you're going to get a very, very fat salary in the private sector. So I think it's a shame that all happened. Not that I have any great time for Sue Gray. I think her reputation was a little bit overinflated.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
I think that was definitely possibly the understatement of the day so far. Isabel, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International Editor there, helping us out with the Keir Starmer dilemma.